For over 2 centuries, the grandest hallways of Buckingham Palace and the secluded estates of the British aristocracy held a secret so deeply guarded that an entire family line was systematically rewritten to protect it. It was a truth so shocking to Victorian society that records were altered, evidence was quietly destroyed, and a mother was separated from her child forever. They believed the secret was buried so deep that time itself would wash away the truth. But in June of 2013, modern science delivered a revelation that sent shockwaves straight through the heart of the British monarchy. Na testing confirmed that Prince William, the future King of England, carries South Asian ancestry. His great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was not the European woman the family had claimed for generations. She was an Indian woman named Eliza Keewark, living in the bustling port of Surat under the reign of the East India Company. But as historian researchers were unearthing this 200-year-old genetic cover-up, an even more unsettling story began to emerge from the quiet grounds of the Spencer family estate at Althorpe. A story about the woman who carried that exact same genetic lineage into the royal family, Princess Diana. Nearly 3 decades after her tragic death, an unprecedented operation took place on the secluded island where Diana rests. A secret expedition, executed under the cover of early morning darkness, opened her tomb. What they uncovered inside was not just a confirmation of physical preservation, but a hidden time capsule, sealed letters, and explosive personal documents that Diana herself had arranged to leave behind. When you connect the erased life of Eliza Keewark in the 18th century with the final secret messages of Princess Diana in the 20th, a chilling pattern emerges. It is the story of 2 women separated by centuries, both caught in the gears of an unforgiving royal institution, both stripped of their voices, and both ultimately vindicated by the one thing the establishment could never erase: the truth. To understand how these 2 extraordinary stories converge, you have to go back to September 6, 1997. On that agonizing day, over 2 billion people across the globe watched as the body of Diana, Princess of Wales, was brought to her final resting place. She was laid to rest not in a royal vault or a cold church crypt, but on a small, quiet island situated in the middle of an ornamental lake known as the Oval at Althorpe, her family's ancestral estate. Surrounded by whitewater lilies and ancient oak trees, the island was designed to be an unreachable sanctuary, accessible only by a single rowboat, preserved exclusively for her family to mourn in private. For 27 years, that grave remained entirely undisturbed. The world accepted that Diana was at peace, resting in total isolation from the chaotic media spotlight that had defined her final years. But behind closed doors, a quiet crisis was developing. The island location, while deeply symbolic and peaceful, presented severe engineering challenges over time. Surrounded entirely by water, the burial chamber was constantly exposed to moisture, shifting soil, and potential water ingress. An engineering survey commissioned by her brother, Earl Spencer, revealed worrying signs about the structural integrity of the underground vault. It was not an immediate catastrophe, but it required urgent action to ensure the long-term protection of the site, under British law and strict private burial regulations. Addressing structural repairs on a sacred site requires a formal access process. But beyond the physical maintenance of the tomb, there was an emotional catalyst driving the decision. Prince William and Prince Harry wanted definitive answers about the state of their mother's final resting place. They sought absolute reassurance that time. Water and environmental factors had not compromised the sanctuary where she lay. And so, behind a wall of total secrecy, a carefully planned operation was organized. The press was not notified. Estate staff members were kept away from the lake. Under the shroud of dawn, a specialized team consisting of structural engineers, preservation experts, and funeral directors crossed the water to the island. Earl Spencer was present on the shoreline, overseeing every single step of the process. Reports indicate that Prince William attended the private proceedings, while Prince Harry was fully briefed from California. The removal of the heavy stone slab took hours of meticulous, silent work. Every movement was recorded by secure cameras for archival records. When the inner vault was finally exposed, a heavy, emotional silence fell over everyone present. The structural fears, fortunately, had been caught in time. The primary chamber was still intact. But as the preservation team conducted their initial assessment, they realized something that left them completely speechless. Resting within the burial chamber, alongside the official items documented during her 9/7 funeral, were objects that did not appear on any administrative record. When Diana was buried, the world knew she was laid to rest holding a set of rosary beads given to her by Mother Teresa, photographs of her young sons William and Harry, and personal family mementos. But the expedition uncovered items that had been secretly placed inside the vault objects, arranged with deliberate care prior to the final sealing of her casket. Among these discoveries were sealed, heavy envelopes addressed in Diana's distinct handwriting. They were not modern additions placed by visitors over the years. They were original materials, preserved inside protective casing, untouched for nearly 3 decades. There was a letter addressed to Prince William, a letter to Prince Harry, a personal message to her brother Charles, and documents relating to her private experiences inside the royal household. Diana, knowing the precarious nature of her existence in the final months of her life, had created a personal time capsule. She left behind direct, unvarnished words meant to be uncovered only when her grave was eventually accessed. The contents of those letters represent a voice speaking directly from beyond the grave. The letter to Prince William focused heavily on the immense weight of the crown he was destined to inherit. Diana wrote not with bitterness toward the monarchy as an abstract idea, but with a mother's desperate warning about the psychological traps of the institution. She detailed the emotional isolation she had experienced, advising William to never sacrifice his humanity or his capacity for genuine love for the sake of cold protocol. She urged him to break the cycles of emotional detachment that had broken so many royal marriages before his, warning him to choose a partner with absolute care and to protect his personal happiness above institutional expectations. To Prince Harry, her words carried a deeply tender, almost protective energy. Diana seemed acutely aware that Harry would struggle with the unique burden of being the secondary heir, the spare in an unyielding system. She encouraged him to remain fiercely true to his instincts, to never allow rigid court traditions to crush his spirit, and to use his platform to stand up for those who had no voice. Beyond the personal letters to her sons, the tomb contained private journals and documentation detailing specific events from her time behind palace walls. These records included financial notes, private observations regarding agreements made during her divorce, and personal accounts of conversations that had left her feeling deeply threatened during the tumultuous fallout of the 1990s. For decades, the public was led to believe that Diana's famous letter predicting a fatal car accident was an isolated incident of paranoia. But the documents recovered from her tomb suggest a far more detailed and structured record of her deep concerns for her safety during her final years. The discovery created an immediate dilemma for the Spencer family and the royal heirs. Earl Spencer immediately requested that non-family personnel step back, taking sole custody of the personal items. When news of the tomb's opening reached Buckingham Palace, it triggered deep anxiety within the highest levels of the royal establishment. King Charles was made aware of the discovery within hours, well aware of the damaging potential should Diana's private writings reach the public sphere. Queen Camilla's inner circle reportedly viewed the existence of these unedited documents with profound unease, knowing that Diana's direct accounts could reignite intense public scrutiny over the events of the late 20th century. Prince William and Prince Harry found themselves divided over how to handle their mother's final legacy, with William favoring total privacy and protection of the crown's stability, while Harry favored transparency and honoring his mother's unfiltered truth. Yet, as extraordinary as Diana's final messages are, They represent only the latest chapter in a much older, deeper narrative of institutional secrecy that defines her bloodline. To truly understand why Diana felt so isolated and why her life ended in such dramatic defiance of royal tradition, you have to look backward through her mother's family line, back through 7 generations of women who carried a secret that the British establishment spent 200 years trying to erase. Long before Diana walked down the aisle of St. Paul's Cathedral in 1981, her family tree had been systematically altered to hide a truth that Victorian society considered an unforgivable scandal. For over 2 centuries, official genealogical records maintained that the maternal line of the Spencer family was purely European. The official narrative stated that a key matriarch in their ancestry, a woman named Eliza Cowark, was of Armenian descent. Armenia was viewed by Victorian high society as an acceptable, exotic, yet distinctly European heritage. It allowed aristocratic families to explain away non-British facial features or dark complexions without admitting to what the rigid racial hierarchy of the British Empire viewed as a deep social flaw: South Asian blood. On June 1st, 1954, Frances Ruth Roche married John Spencer, Viscount Althorp, at Westminster Abbey in one of the most celebrated society weddings of the decade. The guest list was a who's who of British power, attended by Queen Elizabeth II, Prince Philip, the Queen Mother, and Princess Margaret. Frances was just 18 years old, the youngest woman to marry at the Abbey in over half a century. Yet, as she walked down the aisle under the gaze of the entire royal court, not a single person in that grand cathedral realized that the young bride carried the unchanged genetic signature of Eliza Cowark, the Indian woman abandoned on the docks of Surat 130 years earlier. 7 years later, on July 1st, 1961, Frances gave birth to a daughter named Diana Frances Spencer. Diana grew up on the Sandringham estate, playing with young Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, seamlessly embedded in the highest echelons of the British aristocracy. When she married Prince Charles in 1981, the world celebrated the match as the ultimate fairy tale union of 2 pure European aristocratic bloodlines. The official Spencer family tree still proudly listed Eliza Cowark as Armenian. The secret remained completely safe, buried beneath centuries of polished peerage books and aristocratic pride. It was only when science stepped in 200 years later that the carefully constructed lie crumbled entirely. When Dr. Jim Wilson's team published their findings in 2013, the reaction from Diana's family was surprisingly telling. Mary Roach, Princess Diana's maternal aunt, offered a saliva sample for the study, fully expecting the testing to confirm their long-held Armenian heritage. When informed that the DNA proved undeniable Indian ancestry, her response was remarkably open and joyful. She publicly stated that she was absolutely delighted to discover her Indian background, demonstrating how much societal views had evolved since the cruel days of the Victorian era. But while Diana's maternal family embraced the truth, the official response from the royal establishment was marked by total, resounding silence. Kensington Palace, Clarence House, and Buckingham Palace issued no statements. Prince William and Prince Harry made no public comments regarding their newly discovered South Asian heritage. During official royal tours to India in subsequent years, the subject was carefully avoided by diplomatic staff. The royal family's deep silence regarding both the genetic truth of Eliza Cowark and the secret contents of Diana's open tomb reveals a profound institutional reality. The British monarchy is an institution built on carefully maintained narratives, continuity, and control. For centuries, that control relied on deciding who belonged, who was included in the official history, and who was quietly scrubbed from the ledgers. Eliza Cowark was erased because her existence challenged the racial hierarchy of an empire. Diana's private thoughts were sealed away because her unfiltered truth threatened the carefully managed image of the modern crown. But history has a remarkable, relentless way of breaking through the most heavily guarded doors. Today, the Dina of Eliza Coark lives on not only in Prince William, but in his children Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Because mitochondrial Dina is passed down exclusively through the female line, Princess Charlotte now carries that exact same rare genetic signature, ensuring that the legacy of an abandoned Indian woman in Surat will remain embedded in the direct line of the British crown for generations to come. Science accomplished what history attempted to deny. It gave a voice back to a woman who was silenced, forgotten, and cast aside by the powerful. And as those sealed letters and personal documents from Diana's tomb slowly begin to shape our understanding of her final days, the connection between these two extraordinary women becomes complete. Both Eliza Coark and Princess Diana were caught in the powerful machinery of an elite establishment that sought to control their lives, dictate their stories, and minimize their impact. But ultimately, neither the passage of 200 years nor the weight of a stone tomb could keep the truth buried forever. In the end, the official records fade, the altered documents crumble, and the truth stands fully revealed to the world.